The Sound of Doubt podcast is also available to listen to on iTunes, Spotify, and Audible. So if you want to listen to your podcast, you can go check it out there. If not, what's up, guys? All right, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Sound of Dow. Happy Monday, everyone. So I've decided we're going to overhaul the podcast a little bit. We got to make this more like a real podcast, okay? Because I've been kind of sick, quite frankly, of just speaking to you guys blankly into the camera all by myself. It just feels so lonely here. So I decided to go and get a co-host. Now, unfortunately, the co-host selection process was a little bit difficult because most people who actually know what they're doing are too busy. So I've had to downgrade folks, and we're just brought back the my what do we call him? Rich Indian friend from
Mm.
the Wall Street podcast, I believe. And he is here. So would you like to introduce yourself, sir, to the people who forgot?
Yeah. I'm the rich Indian friend from the the last podcast, and Vince really did flatter me last podcast. He put a little red dot on my head, indicative of how amazing I am. But yeah, I'm Shashank Yalamanchi. I am a political campaign organizer out of Pennsylvania, and I don't appreciate Vince calling me a downgrade. Like, come on, Vince. To get someone like high class like me, someone so respectable, you had to like really give me a good offer to get on here.
His offer, I didn't. I was just like, hey, actually, no. I think he asked me. He was like, hey, man, I
Okay, we don't need to get into the specifics,
I
Vince.
really need
There's
some
no
publicity.
need to get into
Please,
the
Vince, I really
specifics.
need some publicity here. Okay, nobody knows who I am. Okay, please associate with me so I can get my job on my Senate campaign. Okay, that was the story. That's what happened. Anyways, so this is our co-host. His name is, we'll just call him Shank. Okay, that's his short named. And today on the podcast we want to talk a little bit about this whole story around Ted Cruz and how it really reveals, obviously, like double standards, like we know that, but it also tells the real story of who the real elitists and who the real working class party is in Washington. But so you obviously have this story around Ted Cruz. It was not good optics. Okay, we're all mature enough to admit that. But obviously we had the Texas snowstorm this week, or last week rather, and Ted Cruz basically took a very short vacation to Cancun, and it's like, I hold nothing against him for it personally. If he was a private citizen or even like a journalist, it wouldn't even have been a big deal. But the fact that he was a politician, leaving his state when it's in such a bad crisis where like half the state's without power, and again, I don't have anything personally against Ted Cruz for it. Like I'm fine. I'll stick up for him. But in this case, I will say that it just was not the best optics. Like, obviously, and I would say it's worse. It's a typical DC moment. Like that's just typical Washington. Okay, and we're gonna go into examples of why that is just typical Washington in a little bit. But the reason why I say I sort of expect better from Ted Cruz is rather than opposed to someone like Mitch McConnell or Lindsey Graham, is the fact that Ted Cruz, his whole career, has always prided himself off of like being anti-establishment, like anti-DC, right? He's always ran against, even before he became more Trumpian, more, I guess, populist, right? But his whole career, he's really been this guy who's, the DC establishment is crooked, they're corrupt, they don't appreciate you, and I'm a man of the people of Texas, right? And so that's why I think I think that's why a big reason why, especially, you see the left wing media trying to hone in on him as much as possible, because they know they give off this image of being the condescending ivory tower Hollywood elites, and they're trying to pick on someone who generally is seen as more of like a man of the people kind of guy. And so that's why I would say it was just bad optics overall. For Ted Cruz, is not a good thing. I mean, he will recover, he'll be fine ultimately. Like 3 months from now, nobody's going to remember this, but I think this revealed sort of an interesting little dynamic in Washington, because you notice that Ted Cruz going to Cancun during a snowstorm, which, by the way, he didn't break any of his own state regulations, gets more attention and more heat than this long list of Democrat politicians blatantly breaking their own rules that they themselves wrote into law or into executive order throughout the COVID pandemic, right? You have, actually, Shank, I think you said you have a list of all the times they've done this. But obviously,
Yes, I
off the top of
do.
my head, I can think of, you have Gavin Newsom with the French Laundry incident. You have, I believe, Bill De Blasio, right? He went to the gym when it was closed, and he managed to get in by himself. I mean, there's a long list of this, but would you like to go into that?
Yeah. In addition to that, we have California Governor, Gavin Newsom. You
I
mentioned
just said
him.
that. Yes.
Yeah. You got Chicago Mayor. Lori Lightfoot. She's been
Yeah.
pretty infamous
Beetlejuice.
there. Yeah. You got very infamous. Um, Andrew Cuomo. Remember him. In addition, you got Sam Liccardo, mayor of San Jose, Muriel Bowser, mayor of DC. You got Michael Hancock, mayor of Denver, and you got Steve Adler, mayor of Austin. That's a lot of people, actually.
And these people did far worse things than Ted Cruz. It was just looked bad. But these people are people that blatantly, flagrantly broke their own rules that they set into place, right? And you see that, this is why I guess like I talked about in my speech. If you guys saw that on Friday, this is a part of the problem as to why, when you have the left controlling all of our institutions, including the media, this is why they are able to hijack the narrative to where, like, it doesn't matter whenever they do this stuff, but it matters when, we do this stuff. But I well, let's also remember, you have Nancy Pelosi. This is the ultimate Marie Antoinette moment. Like, you want to talk about those? You have Nancy Pelosi in the middle of these lockdowns when you had like a bunch of people struggling, and many people in their district already are freaking poor because they live in San Francisco. Sorry for them. But you had her showing off an entire industrial sized freezer worth of like expensive ice cream. Remember that?
Yeah, that was a pretty funny moment. She was laughing, telling on what was that? Some Saturday Night Live show,
I think it was
something.
Stephen Colbert's show, who is equally just a pompous ivory tower prick, if I excuse my
Hmm.
language. But
Yeah, that she pretended to be, cool with the people, but she was really just showing off her wealth, her
yeah,
big fridge full of ice cream. Like, who has that much ice cream? Like, okay, no offense, but like, no one needs that much ice cream. Okay, you don't. That's
wait,
like
no,
literally.
just wait till you see her wine freezer. But
Okay, yeah. That's at least like $50,000 worth of wine in there.
yeah, well,
Probably,
she
from lobbyists,
they have
probably
to,
donated
but
by lobbyists.
I think they have to restock it very often too, because she
Hmm.
has
Hmm.
some drinking problems. But I think ultimately, this really was a distraction from Andrew Cuomo himself. You mentioned Andrew Cuomo earlier, and it really, Ted Cruz's timing could not be worse with this, because it covered Andrew Cuomo right now is in really deep water here, folks. Okay, so you have,
Hmm.
we all know the nursing home scandal, right? And I think it was a New York, either was it inspector general, right, investigated, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they basically released a report stating that the nursing home deaths were undercounted by as much as 50%. And basically, what Andrew Cuomo was doing with this was he would move these nursing home patients right before, like, knowing they were dying, right before they died, move them to the hospital so they wouldn't get counted as nursing home deaths. And it's pretty clear, when the evidence is coming out, that Andrew Cuomo was doing this intentionally and he was directly involved with this cover up. But then, of course, you have this week, state assemblyman in New York, Ron Kim, and he's a Democrat, by the way. There's not some Republican trying to slander him, but
He's very progressive, by the way, like
very
one of the most progressives.
yeah, he is. And he basically whistle blew that Andrew Cuomo basically called, because he's been basically trying to investigate this, right? He's been trying to expose what happened in the nursing homes. And Andrew Cuomo, governing like Tony Soprano, like the freaking Italian mafia mob boss that he thinks he is, calls Ron Kim like late at night and basically threatened him, right? He threatened him, and we're gonna play the clip right here.
Assemblyman, I know, look, this has been an issue you've cared a lot about for a long time, and I'll get to that. You and I talked about it back last summer. But please tell me about this call with the governor.
Good to see you, Aaron. This happened last Thursday evening around 8 o'clock after news broke that his top aide, had lied about hiding data and information from the federal government for political reasons. She admitted to that in a private meeting, and it was exposed. And the governor called for about 10 minutes. It seemed like 1 hour, berating, yelling, and threatening that I have to issue a statement to that invalidated what I heard. He asked me to lie to cover up for his staff, and this was done in front of my family. He called me. My wife was right next to me. I was, right about to bathe my kids, and it really just put, my family and my wife into shock and trauma for many hours, and she couldn't get any sleep that night. And it's highly inappropriate, for the governor to
So
have
he
done
said,
that.
he
And
said, he said he can destroy you. I mean, he literally said that.
Yeah, and Andrew Cuomo thinks he can get away with everything. He's been governor for a few years now. His dad was governor as well, I believe. And he thinks he can ride off of that. Ride off of his popularity to keep going. And he somehow had the time while this whole nursing home scandal was going on, before this even started, even when conservatives and other people in New York were first blowing the whistle about this. He had the time to write a book. And not only did he write a book, it got onto the top charts. And not only did it do that, he was nominated for an Emmy. This failure, his absolute catastrophic failure at managing this pandemic in New York, and he gets an Emmy. That's just prime leftist establishmentarian, elitist politics.
But
right there.
I think it was funny. He was all over like CNN and all over the media. They were adoring him. People were talking about him running for president, and I've been noticing this trend a lot from them, which is and this has been happening the last 4 years, where they promote people like freaking Jesus, like they worship these people, whether it's Michael Avenatti or Omarosa, or all these people that they pretend are like the free. I actually remember they compared, I forgot who it was, compared Stormy Daniels to the Virgin Mary, right? But they bring on these people like Michael Avenatti, like Andrew Cuomo, who are so clearly frauds. Like they're so clearly full of crap. Eric Swalwell, Adam Schiff, right? And yet they promote them like they're the greatest thing to ever exist. And every single time, without fail, so it just gets uncovered that they were total frauds, or they were doing something really bad or illegal. And I don't understand. Like, it just shows you how out of touch they are. I don't understand why, to this day, they still can't like pick up like, hey, maybe this person is completely full of crap. You had CNN trying to run this whole this cute little sibling rivalry between Chris Cuomo and Andrew Cuomo, and now his brother is is banned from
Under federal investigation.
They're not stopping, though. The state of New York continues to think, especially with Andrew Cuomo at the helm, continues to think that they can govern like some type of Italian mafia mob boss. And honestly, Andrew Cuomo, the Cuomo family probably does have ties to the Italian mafia. I mean, let's be honest. How else do you get elected to governor like 3 or 4 times? Okay, like, yeah, like come on, and have your family in politics for that long? Like, come on, I'm just saying, like, Ron Kim better watch out. Like, don't get whacked by the mafia here, okay? Like, this guy thinks he's a gangster, but you see them. They've to this day, they're still investigating basically Trump and basically every single financial transaction he's ever made, right? Without any sort of basis or probable cause. I mean, they're just trying to use the state of New York and use the state government against their political opponents, and it's like. It starts with Trump, obviously, and you might have heard this. They shut Bill de Blasio pulled the permit for the Trump organization ice skating rinks like just 2-3 months before it was supposed to be pulled. I don't know if you heard this.
Yeah. He's gonna make me not able to ice skate when I go to New York. Like, I don't even want to go to New York now because Bill de Blasio him and Andrew Cuomo have ruined the city. They're beefing with each other now, by the way. They very much dislike each other. But it doesn't matter because they're all using the government, their power, to target their political opponents with no basis whatsoever. And that's just playing politics. They promise not to, and then they do it anyway. But they're hypocrites, and we already know that.
Well, it's not just it's playing mafia. Okay, like people are gonna say I'm racist because they're Italian, but like it's just you can just tell like that's who they are and that's who they think they are. I mean, you look at Chris Cuomo. I mean, just he thinks he's a freaking Guido over here. Like just the biggest tough guy ever. Hey, don't get in my face with that, But it's kind of scary to think, but it is satisfying. But it's kind of scary to think that like these people have to live under the regimes of these people, and then ultimately, you look at Joe Biden, who is best buddies with people like Andrew Cuomo. Oh, what the fuck? My camera battery just died. Yeah. All right, sorry about that for the people who are watching on YouTube. My camera died. Genius I am. This podcast has really been a disaster, don't you think, Shank? I mean, I've had some like crappy episodes, but this is just the worst episode I've ever done, like by far. I blame Shank. I think he's the reason for this. I'm just
a bad luck charm. I accept it. I accept it.
He's just an absolute amateur. Like ultimately, at the end of the day, But anyway,
what have I done? What have I done?
What were we even talking about? I don't even remember, dude. We're talking
about Andrew Cuomo running the thing
thinking
like the mafia.
Thinking he's a mafia boss. But the thing is, this mindset. I mean, Andrew Cuomo is a good caricature of it because he behaves like that. But the thing is, this is not behavior that is unique to Cuomo at all. I mean, these people in general seek to use the force of government against their political opponents, and you see this, that you have people suggesting that Trump supporters be treated in the same way Al Qaeda does. You saw today, congressional Democrats sent a letter to companies like AT&T and Comcast talking about asking these companies whether or not they would literally rip Fox News, Newsmax, and OAN from their coverage. Okay, like this is how bad they're getting. Like they just want to ultimately censor all just major conservative media in general. And this is who we face. This they will not stop. This is what these people do. And this is why I think the culture war is ultimately so important, is because these people, they try to take control of any institution, like all of them, whether it's corporate America, whether it's academia, whether it's the government itself. And then once they have control of those, they will not just use those to like do their basic functions, like sell iPhones or, manage government or teach students, right? They want to use these ultimately as weapons against conservatives and for their own ends. And it's pretty scary, but this mindset is not unique to Cuomo at all. I think that's what people hopefully can realize, that especially, just because someone like Joe Biden talks like crazy, an old grandpa who's like falling asleep and seems like the most non-threatening guy ever. This administration has already been taking actions, to prosecute their political opponents, and they certainly are not going to stop congressional Democrats or local state governments that are run by Democrats from doing the same.
Exactly. And see, the thing is, if you keep giving up ground in this culture war that we're having, they'll keep going. They're a hungry animal. They won't stop. I'm telling you, this leftist, ivory, elitist, this mob is actively eating away at our freedoms and our parts of our institutions. What we used to think of non-biased institutions are now fully controlled by the left. Take the education system, for example. You saw how they were putting critical race theory into kids' curriculums in elementary and middle school. That's just crazy to me.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. This podcast was a disaster, but hopefully it's somewhat watchable. Okay, but I think I think we're just gonna call it quits, because I just hate this episode so much, and I blame Shank. Okay, it's not my fault. It's clearly his fault. Shank, I think you are a disaster to this to my YouTube channel, to this whole organization. But I think we will probably bring you back, because yeah. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to like and subscribe, and be sure to click some of the stuff on my left for some more awesome content. Also, to follow me on social media, check out my podcast, and some more awesome stuff, be sure to check out the links down in my description. All right? Peace.